Pearly gates. All right. Welcome till and the sun is coming out after a very snowy and blowy morning, and I'm going to take a little bit in English today. I'll see how this goes. But stop me if I'm not really understandable. So today's a little bit of a mixed bag, flannel pose here of activities. Decided not to throw a lot of new stuff in because we have exam next week. And so I decided today's not a good day to just really start presenting a lot of new material. And at the same time, I have a fun present. Well, I think it's fun. You may not think it's fun, but I think it's fun. I have a fun presentation that I just finished for a conference that I think kind of gives a little more, what the hell can I do with this kind of presentation? You know, a little bit more practical, hardcore. What do I do with all this knowledge that we're sitting here studying all the time? So, but before we can do that, we have our traditional evaluation, midway evaluation. And so we'll do a midway evaluation, and then I need to have a little talk with you about DTU Learn and about your opgaver, which I have not, for the most of you, I have not graded. I started grading them and it became almost impossible. So many of you will need to resubmit that. Not redo it. I don't mean redo it, but you'll need to reformat it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I can go over the solution to the opgaver, and then a brief talk about what is on the exam. And then my presentation on from the conference for big data, and then some exercises with some data from Minnesota. And I will be good about watching the clock, and I will be good about maintaining pauses, and I am not going to be dragging people past time. And if you have kids to get, or you have family, or you have something else going on, I promise that whatever we're doing as the time approaches later in the lecture, as much as I would love you to stay and participate, is not going to kill you if you want to watch it later on the video or something like that, and you need to go get the kids, or you need to whatever. So let's see how this goes. So first thing, the evaluation. So what I've done is I've put these questions up. Now we don't have a, let's talk about statistical sampling here, folks. Ha ha ha. N equals 9, right? So as we go through this, I certainly care about these opinions, but at the same time, when N equals 9, I'm a little unclear. It's not statistically accurate to make a lot of big decisions for the class based on this sample, because the sample's too small. But this is your opportunity. There are 17 of you, or at least 16. There's 16 of you here, 16 here today. So if you did not participate in this survey, but you now want to throw in your weight, now's the time to do it on this thing here. Now, this is the first time I've run this course, but that's I don't think that's always a great excuse, because I try to do some good things always from the start. And but I do honestly say that I think if compared to the material of the course that preceded this, actually, I think I'm doing pretty good in terms of the material, the lectures and the presentations. Because if you saw the previous materials course, it's okay, it's pretty standard, but I wouldn't consider it especially user-friendly to people who are maybe not so strong in math. So anyway, the first question on here is about the dialogue between the teachers. Well, with the teachers, not between, but with the teachers. And yeah, I got a couple of folks who are not happy. And I should pose the question, you know, is it because my Danish is just bad? Is it because I have bad Danish? And so for example, I'm doing this in English right now. Is it because of Zoom? And in that case, you know, is it a fair question? Because I mean, this is a hell of a way to teach a class, right? Zoom and, you know, but the last one I'm going to be a little pointed about, guys. And the last one is, right now I'm staring at a black screen. Nobody's got their camera turned on. And I haven't been a hard ass about that. When we started very first day, I said, you guys relax. You can do this laying in bed. You can do whatever you want. That's fine. But a dialogue is two people, and I don't have a dialogue. I got black screen in front of me. I got nobody looking at me. I got no faces. I have no clue if you are even listening to me right now. For all I know, you are just got the computer turned on and you're somewhere else. So I do suggest, if you feel that there is not enough communication or that there is a missing dialogue, I honestly, number one, the camera's got to come on, because I'd have no clue how to communicate with you or how to interact at all if the camera is turned off. So that's got to change. If you're one of those people, if you're having a great time and you love this class and you're just like, this is great, I love it, and you know, fine, you just keep doing what you're doing. But if you're unhappy and you're looking for a change, then let's explore some of these changes. And one of those changes is, yeah, turn the camera on. And let me see your face when you're looking at my demo and you're looking at the demo and you're like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. I need to see that, you know, interaction. I need to see that, right? In order to, and that's really missing from when we do this physically. When we do this physically in the classroom, obviously as a professional teacher, you know, one of the things I do, and some of you know this because you've had me in a physical classroom, not so many, a few of you, a number of you, you know, you walk around the classroom, you look at people, you look over their shoulder, you check out what they're doing. There's a certain amount of interaction there, right? So that's kind of important. So, so here we are. So I've said my bit is I haven't heard, what does anybody else think about what I've just said about this question about dialogue and about interaction? Oh, thank you.
Steven,
Yes.
Steven, altså jeg har ikke svaret på den der midtvejs-evaluering, men det ville være dejligt, hvis du skiftede til engelsk, når du underviser, og så hvis folk gerne vil stille et spørgsmål, så kan de stille det på dansk for eksempel.
Ja, det kan vi godt.
Og så kan man have en dialog.
Ja, det kan jeg.
Fortsæt på engelsk.
Ja, jeg kan arbejde på den måde. Det kan jeg godt. Jeg har en mærkelig historie. Jeg har en mærkelig historie. Så jeg var med til en anden Zoom-møde på institutsniveau om noget eller andet. Og så det var 10-11 på skærmen. Og så vi går rundt bordet, og vi har nogle kommentarer og nogle ting. Og så jeg giver mine idéer på dansk, you know, fuldstændig. Og den det kommer til en anden, som stiller en spørgsmål, og den han kom lige ind på engelsk. og han klart forstod, hvad jeg har sagt, og det var fordi han var norsker. Han var norsker, så han kan forstå, hvad jeg har sagt, men han havde ikke selvtilladelse til at svare på dansk, så han vil svare på engelsk. Så det er mærkeligt, at jeg som amerikaner siger noget på dansk og forklarer noget på dansk, og den han svarer til mig på engelsk. Så Men det kan ske. Vi kan gøre det. So yeah, we can do this thing. We can switch
Men
languages.
det er kun for at gøre tingene mere præcise. Når du forklarer på dansk, så kan det godt være lidt misvisende. Altså dine ord kan godt være anderledes i forhold til, hvad det er på engelsk. Så på engelsk der er du mere præcis på, hvad du siger.
Ja, så du synes, at jeg faktisk bliver mere præcis, hvis jeg starter med engelsk.
Ja, hvis du bare snakker engelsk.
Ja, hvis jeg bare snakker fra starten med engelsk og skifter over til dansk, hvis nødvendigt. Og hvis det er noget, som er uklart, så jeg skal forklare eller præcisere.
Nej, præcis. Det er faktisk dit engelsk, der er godt. Altså på engelsk, der fortæller du jo helt præcis.
Okay.
Men på dansk, der kan det være lidt misvisende.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so English is better in terms of if there's any, I want to really make sure. Yeah.
Det er nok fordi, at altså, det vi har om her i Advanced Analytics, det er meget svært stof. Så at når du skal oversætte det til dansk, så kan det godt blive lidt svært, og så bliver det også svært for os at forstå.
Ja.
Så det ligger nok lidt mere der.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try that. All right. So next, material. Yeah, so I got some, I don't like the material. I need some suggestions on this. I put quite a lot of effort actually into making the slides, quite a lot. The textbook is every textbook is different. This textbook's okay. I would rank it in the middle. It's not my favorite, but it's not horrible. It's been really annoying with the number of errors in the textbook. I am quite unhappy with that. You've seen the list of errors I posted on DTU Learn. It's kind of, it's also, the textbook is weak in terms of it does not have exercises that I can assign, and it does not have exercises with solutions. So in my opinion, a typical book I have used or learned as a student would be a mainstream textbook that has, like, say, for example, answers in the back of the book to odd numbered questions and exercises. And this book doesn't have any of that. But I know why it was selected, and I selected it just to maintain continuity with last year. I didn't want to have to redo everything. I wanted to at least be able to use some of the material from last year. But I know why it has been selected is because it says transport in the title, right? Because it has transport problems in it. In my opinion, I'm not clear that that's necessarily critical, that it has transport problems. I think the first priority is to have a good book that's well written, that has good exercises, that has lots of practical learning tools in it. And then the transport stuff comes later, or differently. And I know, and that's also in the sense of, as I'm teaching this course, realistically, this doesn't necessarily have to be, quote, a transport analytics course, because the analytics tools and methods that we're going to learn, there is no such thing as just transport analytics. It's analytics. And the fact that you apply it to transport problems is great. But the science doesn't change. The math doesn't change. It's just a matter of having some comfort, maybe a little more familiar examples that we enjoy or have relevant to our studies or things. But I'm at a loss as to what better to do. I would like a different textbook, but that ain't going to happen, obviously, now. And it may be, it depends on what's available in the market and what is possible in the future. But other than that, if this is a statement of, gee, I don't think your slides are very good or something, talk loose, tell me what the heck it is that you're missing, because I don't have any idea, honestly. But it doesn't mean I don't want to do anything differently. Doesn't mean I'm a jerk and I don't care. I just don't know what the heck to do. I really don't. I do agree there could be more exercises with solutions. I agree on that. And that takes a lot of work. And that would be another reason I would really like to get a different textbook, because a really good textbook, which will probably not be about transport, it will be a mainstream business school textbook. But a really good textbook would have an online website and all kinds of stuff you could download and stuff that's pre-made that you could use. And it would be great. It would have all these things you could do to practice, but it probably would not be focused on transport. So you would have to trade off. You have to give up something in order to get the more exercises and the more material to help you kind of experiment and learn. You'll have to give up the transport. It won't be transport focused. That's just a reality. And so there's no easy solution to that. There really isn't. Unless you want to write a letter to Milena, to the Institute director, and ask her to give me about 100,000 kroner, and I'll hire somebody. I'll hire somebody to go write a whole bunch of exercises. I'd love that. But that's just the reality of our resources and what we have and what the market has, right? I mean, the market, there's a limited market for something. If it's only about transport, then it's a smaller market. There's a limit to what's available. But I try, but I do, either if you want to tell me now or if you want to write me or whatever and give examples of material that you would really value, I would appreciate that. And if those comments make sense, and if there are enough of those comments, they become the basis of me applying for money. They become the basis of me asking for support to get it done, because I don't have that support to just do it. None of us do, to do it as part of our regular teaching. The resources are just not there. There's a limit to how much we can really do. Again, here, activities, just need some suggestions here, what you're looking for. And it's all over the board here, right? I mean, I got some folks that say, it's great, I love it. And I got some folks saying, that's not working. And so give me some suggestions, and as I will say here in a minute, and also sometimes it's just a matter of everybody's different. Everybody's different. And what one person thinks is a lot of fun and works really well, the other person says that didn't work for me. So that's a challenge to try to, to satisfy when everybody's different and everybody has different interest areas and different things they think are fun to do or are interesting. So, yeah. So, yeah, activities. You've noticed I've tried to really keep us busy in breakout rooms and things like that. It is difficult on Zoom because I don't have that physical ability to kind of walk around and observe without being intrusive, right? In a breakout room, yeah, I could jump into your breakout room and poke over you and see what you're doing, I guess. I don't know if that'd be a little odd though. I mean, what if you're in the middle of a discussion in the breakout room and you're saying, yeah, that Steven's such a jerk. I don't know what and then I jump in and say hi. Maybe that would be a little awkward, right? A little strange. So I don't know, but again, it's a dialogue, guys. I mean, it's, anytime you're not so excited about stuff, in some ways we have to say, what do you want? What do you want to do? Did I push the button? I didn't push the button. There we go. And I noticed that I didn't change the number on that question. 3, 4, this is actually 5. It's actually question 5. So this is kind of it's a little bit weird that there is no other teacher. I'm the only teacher. So I'm not clear, but if it could be, where are the holes? Where are the holes in our plan? We've done in my opinion, we've done a pretty logical step-by-step. Let's work our way through. It's not exactly in the same order as, well, no, it is it is reasonably close to the order of the textbook as well. I mean, nothing's ever exactly the same, but it is a reasonable path follow of the textbook. But again, I guess how would you know where there's a hole? I mean, but I've selected the things that I think are most important to cover. There are some things in those first chapter of the textbook or something that we don't cover and on purpose. And then so this is just the general end question, right? What do you think about this course? And here we just kind of got a mix, just kind of a blend, not really a clear pattern. It's kind of a uniform distribution here, which is not what we want to see. So yeah, I care that we do something to make these things better. But I look forward to hearing more from you guys. Some comments here, and this is, I know I've heard this before. So about DTU Learn. So let's try this little experiment here. The bottom line is I don't trust DTU Learn. It's getting a little better, but they basically created this experimental program and are using us as guinea pigs. And even though it's been running for a couple of years, the truth is it was only really being used by DTU Ballerup, and the people at DTU Ballerup, slaved away to get some things to function or whatever. But it hasn't really been tested that heavily. And it's only this semester that things are really getting its full press. And that goes to things like really basic things, like it was only a couple of months ago that your photos started showing up on DTU Learn. Last year, there were no photos on DTU Learn. Stuff like that, right? I mean, it just, features were missing in the program, basically, compared to DTU Inside. DTU Campus, Blackboard, whatever. But this messaging thing. So the deal is I have been using email, mainly because for us in the working world, that is in fact the most primary way we always communicate with each other. And the example would be, I have Outlook on my phone, and I probably am, when I'm away from my desk, I probably am popping this thing open and looking at my mail lots. I mean, on the train, on the bus, on the toilet, whatever, and that's very common. And that's very common for most people employed, for most businesses, is the email is that first point of contact, including for urgent things. Now, I've had this request about, okay, can we use the messages on DTU Learn? So let's try this. My fear about the messages for DTU Learn is I'm not clear that if I have an urgent message like today, we're starting a half an hour late, I'm not clear that people will get it, especially since the old system, you put a message on the course and it automatically got copied to an email. And that doesn't happen with DTU Learn. For, again, I don't know why. Everybody was using it for years that way, and somebody just decided, oh, we're not going to have that feature anymore. But let's try this, because I just want to test. I want to test that this system would work in the way I think it would. So let's pretend I had an urgent message to send to you, and I'm going to send it, and I'm going to do it through this message function. And I'm curious if everybody actually gets it quickly or not. So new message, where's the box? Come in, here it comes. New message, emergency, test of urgent message. And I'm gonna send it, or post it, I guess, is the way to say. So it looks like I've got all the buttons here down below. Okay. And so go, there it is. So I just sent it. So I guess the question I have is, did everybody here get this? And did you get it? How did you get it? I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter to me how you got it, but they get it if they have the correct notification preferences. Thank you, Rasmus. And okay, so the answer is you guys have figured this out, and I can trust it'll work. because that wasn't clear last year, honestly. It wasn't. I had received some comments from some of my colleagues who teaching colleagues who said, it didn't work. Some of my students didn't have the thing turned on or whatever, and they didn't get my message. So this is we'll take this step of using the message function instead of email. Fremel forward on here. All right, we'll do it. We'll do it. It's a big step, but no more emails then. No more emails. All right, no more emails. And I guess I can just delete this now. Slet. Yeah, am I sure? Yeah, it's going away. All right, so fine. So we will do that. I will do that, and I will trust that it works. I will trust that it will in fact work. All right, now where were we? Let's pick up where we left off here. Boop. Yes, got to readjust this window here. Yeah, okay, and so I have a longer comment to this, this one comment here about understanding the meanings of things. So here are some suggestions, in terms of your study, in terms of how you do things. I think, and this is not new, and I get this kind of with a number of students in various types of technical, whenever I'm teaching something technical, whenever I'm teaching something that's very technical, this is a very common kind of stress, the stress of, I don't really fully, when do I do this, or how do I do this, or what's going on here? And it's a balance, because on the one hand, we want to teach you these skills, and not just teach you the skills, but also teach you to, on your own, figure out when the tool should be used. So when you say, well, this question seems kind of vague, you didn't tell me exactly everything I need to do. You didn't, how come you didn't tell me I need to go to page 23 and use this function in Excel? Well, sometimes that's on purpose. Sometimes the part of the learning, part of the stress of the exercise is intentional. Part of it is to say, hey, because in the real world, there's nobody out there telling you go to page 23 and use, this Excel function. Part of that stress is to say, hey, okay, think about, we want you to develop that skill to be able to figure out yourself when this tool works. And so it is true that textbooks and me and exams and things will write questions where, it's intentionally a little stressful. It's intentionally just enough information, but not everything, and intentionally a little bit short. Yeah, sometimes the questions are intentionally stressful and short and maybe forcing you to really think about it. But I do have some suggestions here. I've got them on this slide here. I think the first problem is that there is no magical one way to describe or explain all of these technical mathematical things. They are by definition, it is a very abstract, deep subject. But I have to say, also, if I compare it to language learning, it is also, I would say it is also true, there is no such thing as one way to learn a language. There are people who find one way of learning a language is great, and then other people who say that same way doesn't work for me. I don't get it. And so it's the same in math. And there are some ways I can present something where some of you are like, oh, that's great. I get it. I understand right now. And some of you will be like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. I don't understand. That it does put some of the burden on you to say that. It does put some of the burden on you, for example, during a lecture, during a presentation, for you to, if I've just gone through 1, 2, 3 slides and you were like, I have no idea what this guy just did. It does put the burden on you to say, hey, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand what we're doing. I don't get it. And that is your burden. But it is true also that, and this is true for me too, I am not magically the best mind reader student ever. I am not. I also have had professors, and in fact, including in probability, I have had professors who I have a little bit of a story. The first professor, well, not the first, but the most significant, the most important professor in my knowledge, and I will get to that comment in a minute, Milal. The first professor, the most important, biggest impact professor on my knowledge of probability during my PhD was a guy who, in the first few months that I knew him, I didn't get along with him very well. I was not his favorite student, and he thought I was a lazy bum. He thought I was a jerk. And because I didn't fully understand his style, and I didn't, he was an old guy and he taught in a very old-fashioned way, and I was kind of his material, talk about learning material. His learning material was handwritten pieces of paper that he had taken to the copy machine and copied onto plastic transparencies. And then he had a transparency projector. Do you guys even know what that is? You're too young. You don't even know what the hell that is. It's a big box with a lamp in it and a glass table, and you put a transparency on top of it, and it shoots light up through the transparency and projects it up on the wall. And I think those are in museums now. But anyway, this is how he taught. This is the way the whole lecture was a stack of these transparencies with his handwritten text, not even typed. Handwritten text. And you'd just be up there putting these things up on the screen. So anyway, the first few months of this, and I was like, God damn it. I don't like this. So I didn't do very well with him the first semester, but I had a little bit of a reset over the winter break, over the Christmas break. And I knew I needed to know this material because I knew it was fundamental to my degree. And I just changed my whole deal here. And I just said, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to stop fighting this guy. I don't like his slides. I don't like that. I agree that's not very good. But I'm going to read this damn textbook, and I'm going to try to get a grip on what it is this guy is saying that's really important. And it just took some creative thinking on my part. I just had to try to think a little differently. It was not going to be a situation where I was going to get him to change to do what I wanted. I just had to kind of figure out what his deal was. And something clicked. And the next semester, because it was a 2-semester sequence, and the next semester, something clicked, and suddenly I was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I see what this guy is talking about. And it just clicked like that. And suddenly I started figuring out what the heck this guy was doing. And maybe he could have better explained it himself. He just didn't know how to, or didn't realize what was important about what he was saying. But it clicked. And suddenly I saw a pattern. I saw a pattern in what he was doing. There was a pattern. A pattern with the way he would explain things. And once I found that pattern, suddenly I was like, oh, now this is a lot easier. And the pattern, in case you're curious, the pattern is I kept trying. He would present some horribly complicated probability function on the screen, and I kept trying to solve it directly using calculus. It was all, what is the explain what the cumulative value of this thing is when it's expressed this way. And I just get my paper and pen out and start trying to solve the double integral and do the calculus. And that was the wrong way to do it. I realized later that the deal was that what I needed to do for his material was to look for patterns. And his entire solution method was, here's this problem. I identify within that problem some kind of building block pattern that we already know from something else. And we copy and paste that building block into his problem. And then suddenly a bunch of stuff like all goes away and turns to zero and becomes a bunch of simple values, and we're solved the problem. And I discovered, just realized this, and maybe he could have done a better job explaining it or bringing it to my attention. But once I figured that out, suddenly the whole class was going like crazy, really good. And it turned out, 2 years later, as a PhD student, I ended up being one of his helpelaire. Ended up working for him as a teaching assistant. But anyway, the point is, after that long story, yeah, I can try, but at the same time, sometimes it's just down to you thinking, what can I do to think differently about this? How can I study this differently? Some suggestions that work for me when I don't understand, if I'm reading something I don't fully understand. And for example, there are times I read the textbook and I'm like, what the hell is this guy writing in this textbook? I don't understand it. Sometimes I do. I just go to Google and I go to Wikipedia and I look for the same thing on Wikipedia or Google, and then I compare them. I got the textbook here and I got Wikipedia here, and I'm like, okay, which parts of these things agree with each other? And what is it that's different? And sometimes looking at it from a different way, looking at something described by a different person in a different way gives it a different angle and a different way to look at it. And it helps. It really does. Even in creating the material for us in this class, there were occasionally times when I was looking at our textbook and I was like, I'm not clear what the heck's going on here. Or in some cases, it turned out later, in fact, it was wrong. And that's why I didn't understand it, because it was actually wrong in the textbook. But it does help to go to Google, look up some web pages, go to YouTube, look at some videos, having that additional view, having that way of looking at. And to be honest, guys, this is why the breakout rooms are so important, right? This is why the breakout rooms are so important, because this is a great opportunity for you to say, I don't know what the hell we're doing. And for someone else to say, okay, maybe both of you don't fully understand what's going on, but it could be you could share a little bit. And one person says, well, I'm sure this part goes this way. And the other person says, I'm sure this part goes that way. And then maybe you solve it. So the breakout rooms is part of that too, working. And that's all about team learning, right? Group learning. So I think I just about covered it all here. I think I've given a long story about this. And lastly, some things that I know you might be resistant to. We all are. I'm guilty of this too as a student. I am guilty of this too. But sometimes if the stuff gets hard and you really want to learn it, yeah, you got to sit down and make notes. Yep, on paper with a pen. And that's an important learning tool. And I did it studying probability. I finally broke down and said, no, I'm not just going to skim this text and try to solve the question the day before the exam. I'm not going to do that. I am going to sit down and write some notes and really sketch this out, and so that I get it up here. And that's an important activity. Taking the time to make some notes, make your own notebook, with notes. The physical act of writing this down is part of that learning experience. And I encourage that. And again, all these times in the exercises where I've said, draw a figure. And some of you are doing that. Thank you very much. It's helping your exercises, your homework. Draw a figure. This is part of the learning activity, and it's part of your way of showing yourself, yes, I have this, I correctly understand this. So that's where we are here. And I hope, do please send me suggestions. I hope that I can continue to drive this course towards the end of the semester, and that people will come out of this feeling like, okay, I've learned something, and and even though if I don't have it fully memorized, I know it well enough that in the future, I know where to go back to find it again if I need it in the future. That's my goal. That's what I think any good course should do. And so please, that's the goal here. But it does require a dialogue and an interaction with you guys. And you do, yeah, it's math stuff takes some effort. You can't just read a cute couple articles and say, oh, I'll make a presentation and I'm done. And it requires, yeah, some practice with stuff. So anyway, enough of that bawling and complaining and stuff. Let's see what we got here next on the list. Okay, guys. So here's the deal. I'm going to watch the clock here. Woo, I'm looking at the clock. Wow, time goes fast. Okay, just this one slide, this comment, and then we'll take a break. We'll take a break right after this. Take a commercial break right after this message here. So I wrote to you in the exercise instructions, please make your work 1 page wide. And a large number of you did not do that. And it means I just basically can't correct your work. This is what it looks like when I look at your work on DTU Learn. This is what it looks like. I open the window and it displays your assignment on the left, and on the right, I have a place to put in a score and I have a place to make some comments. And if you don't format your work to 1 page wide, it becomes really almost impossible to really read what your answers are. And some of you, I'm going to be a little critical. You cannot do this. Some of you just like created a spreadsheet and uploaded the spreadsheet to DTU Learn without any formatting at all. And I click on that, and the thing up in the left says 70 pages. It's not going to work. I can't do that. You do need to format your work. There are a couple of ways you could do it. Number one, you print it to PDF. You print it to PDF, and then you know for a fact that what you are submitting is the right size. That's number one. Number two, you go into Excel and there's a page view, there's a viewing setting where you can tell Excel to show you the page breaks. Where are the page breaks? And you can move stuff around on your spreadsheet so that everything fits within the page breaks. And then when you go to print preview, you will see that everything fits within the page breaks. And that will also guarantee that it's correct. And the last bit, the negative about Excel, and the reason why I'm not so excited that you just throw up your Excel file, is that, if you've got a data column with 744 values or 500 values as we had in this exercise, of course, if you throw up Excel, then when I go to view it on the screen here, I get page after page after page after page of just your data column. And I don't need that. Nobody needs that. So I guess the final recommendation here is I think the PDF is the way to go. And I think after you've generated the PDF to delete any pages that are just like the data column going on and on and on and on. But that's what I've got. So I started grading these things yesterday, and then I can't do it. So like 4 of you have grades, but nobody else has grades. So I would ask you to, if your assignment is like this, where the display is wrong, correct the formatting. You can't change the answers, but you can correct the formatting and upload it again. And then I'll grade the one with the correct formatting. But I don't want that to delay us seeing the answers today. I'd like to show the answers because we have exam next week. So I am going to show the solution here after the break. But in terms of grading, yeah, please reformat your work and resubmit it. I changed the setting on here so that you can resubmit another version. And let's do that. But that's why it's so important. And this is just another learning thing about learning about DTU Learn. That it's very sensitive to this. I mean, normally, honestly, I hate this. I would prefer a paper submission. I hate doing this electronically. It is much more labor intensive, and I cannot offer the really personalized kind of commentary on your work that I could if it was a printed paper that I could draw on, because I could do a much better commentary and much more interesting remarks on your work if I can actually draw on your paper quickly. I mean, yes, I could do it in Adobe and stuff, but with 25 students, download the papers, comment, load them up again. No, I'm sorry, not going to happen. But
Stephen, can I add something?
yes,
You need to breathe sometimes, because you can't get a word and you just talk in a stream and it just keeps going.
you could put your hand up. You could rake your hand up too. I got the participant list open right here. You just raise your hand.
When I go in and learn, I can only download. So if I upload it in a PDF, that should be fine, right? Because I can't see the same as what you're seeing here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
You just said that if you hadn't gotten a grade, you should go in and look if you have the right format. And I could.
Yeah.
I just checked and I can only. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. How do you know if it looks the way I want it to, right? Is the question. How do you know? My best guess, and there are some people who did this and it looks beautiful. My best guess is, and Word, yeah, Malal, Word should work because with Word, you know for a fact what it is. You know it's a page wide in Word. I think the main problem is Excel. There's Excel, you start putting stuff into Excel, and then it's like, starts going way over here on these columns. And then Excel just like starts randomly putting it different places. So yeah, Word, I think if you're doing it in Word, you are completely safe. You have no fear whatsoever. Yeah, I think in Word, it's good. I think there's no problem there. And there was a comment earlier and I did not respond to it. I just realized now. Somebody said, oh, it was you, Malal. I did not answer this. You asked about sticker site. Now, there are these discussion boards, you know, on Learn, long time ago, like 4 years ago. I did turn on a discussion board for one of the classes I was teaching, and nobody used it. But if, you know, I think the starting point, honestly, the starting point is just you send me an email with a question, or you start chatting me. Thank you very much, Malal. You're chatting. Lots of people are chatting on here. That's a good start. You just start sending me your questions regardless. The benefit of the bulletin board, the benefit of the discussion board on Learn is when the volume gets up there to the point where I'm like, wow, this is too many messages. I can't deal with it. Then I say, let's go over to the discussion board. But that hasn't happened. I don't have that much volume. I'm not getting that many. I'm not getting very many comments at all, actually. So for now, just write me. At some point in the future, if it gets to be that I'm getting so many comments that I'm like, this is too much, I can't do this. Yeah, then we'll turn on the discussion board and that'll, you know, be great. But the discussion board needs a critical mass. It needs a certain minimum level of activity in order for it to actually be useful to people. And if it's only like 2 people who post an occasional question, then nobody looks at it, right? Nobody cares. So there are, Milal, I mean, I believe we do have communication tools in DTU Learn that we could use. And the critical part is how many people will jump in. We need 5 or 10 people to actually jump in and actively be using it for it to actually have any value. Otherwise, just write me directly. Just write me personally, or you know, raise your hand here, guys, if you want to ask a question. If I'm just too fast a talker, you know me, I'm just such a big talker. If I'm just not letting you in here, raise your hand or do something. Turn on the camera. Turn on the camera, wave at the screen. Let me in. And don't forget also that the way this Zoom thing works, I believe whoever's talking, your name jumps up to the top of the list. So if you're just trying to get my attention, just cough or clap your hands or just just jump in, because then your name will float up to the top of the list and get my attention, the way this thing works here. Anyway, all right, so let's take a break. I think it's break time. Yes, it is. It is break time. So let's take a break here, and I think we come back and it's the solution to the homework. So break time, and let's do it. I didn't bring my time ring with me, but let's take like a 6-minute break, a little 6-minute break, and I'll, you know me, when it's time to come back, I'll start playing the music, and you'll hear it in the background, be like, oh, the music's playing, I better come back to the screen. So let's take a break, and I'll see you in a little bit here. And my coffee's getting cold already. All right, so I'll see you. All right. Yeah, why don't you just go ahead and schedule it for the future, and because you said it's not going to be available until tomorrow, Monday, right? So so it's the future. It's not whatever tomorrow. Monday's fine. And meanwhile, I asked you to investigate what our rights are.
You sure you'll be able to do that?
You could come start. Yeah. I can't do it right now.
Oh, I know, no, but I'm just wondering if you want me to do it.
Peter, can you hear me?
Wait until after Monday, or, your life is a little less crazy, or?
You can wait as long as you want, but it just means that much longer until we get things figured out.
Okay, so I'll make an appointment, and you'll do what's yours and the other stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know, are you done with this stuff?
I am.
There's only a little bit left.
A little bit left, not full. Where did this, was this on the top shelf? I have a hard time getting it out. Until
And then we put it in.
and it put in. Yeah, it wasn't good.
when they told their employees when you wait your month, that's probably gonna be. Not really wait your month, it's wait your week.
She blew for me, merry little Jenny, in a cabin on. We made our vow, we love each other, and I know we always will. She's my rose of old Kentucky, I watch her bloom as the years go by. And the day there'll never be another. I'll never till the day I die. Pouring dreams, I see my darling in the gingham dress. She looks so sweet. How I long, old Kentucky, and darling was born to me. She's my rose of old Kentucky. I watch her bloom as the years go by. And the day there'll never be another. Till the day I die. Oh, I know you often wonder, so I'll tell you the reason why. My rose of old Kentucky, and I know she'll never lie. She's my rose of old Kentucky. I want to bloom as the years go by. And the day there'll never be another. Till the day I die.
Yeah.
Steven, one
saw
thing.
you guys live.
Remember, Steven,
Yeah.
remember to turn off your mic when you leave your computer.
Why?
Oh, we could hear you and your wife talking.
Did I say anything bad?
I don't think so, but you could.
I knew I had the mic on.
Okay.
I promised not to have any marital fights.
No, but you guys are gonna have a party soon, right? With the stimulus check you're getting.
Yeah. So
You guys are gonna get paid out from Biden.
I got my my first stimulus check here from the mails, takes a little while. So this is, notice it still says Donald Trump.
But why don't you get those directly into your account in the US?
What?
Why do you get a check? My
What?
wife gets it straight into account.
What?
She had the money in December.
Why?
Now you're gonna get $1,400.
This is America's a paper-based economy. This is none of this fancy NEM-ID battalion service stuff. No, sirree, Bob. We still get our bills in the mail, write a check, pay it by mail. Yeah. Yeah, folks. Anyway, that one was dated last January. That's how long the mail was. I just got that 2 days ago, and I haven't gotten the new payment. And there are some people getting it electronically deposited, but I guess because I'm out of the country. Oh, I know why. It's because of the taxes, international taxes. I actually have not had any tax due in the United States. So I have no bank account on file in the United States. So they send me a paper check. I think that's why. But anyway, back to work. But I didn't get to finish my story. I saw these guys live, Del McCoury Band. The Del McCoury Band that you were just listening to, I saw them live in Lexington, Kentucky, 2001, and had really good seats. It was a Prairie Home Companion. It was the Prairie Home Companion radio show in Lexington, Kentucky. And I was a sponsor actually as part of my business. So I bought advertising on the show and had seats on the stage right behind the band and saw these guys live. So anyway, a lot of fun, good memories. Well, let's get this thing rolling here. Solution to the exercise. Let me open this up. Open this thing up here. Yes. Nope, wrong folder. Still looking. That's the wrong folder. Got a lot of windows here. Excuse the Windows search. There it is. Found it. All right. Here we go. And there we go. And there we go. And let's open this one as well. Let's open that one too. All right. Here it comes. And there it goes. So there's what the assignment was. Come on. There we go. So there was the assignment. And here is the spreadsheet with the answers. And let's see if I can scoot this in here in a reasonable way. So this is the original data table. And let me put this in front too. There we got that again. And I'm going to kind of scoot these around so I can switch back and forth. There we go. So the first question is asking about the confidence interval, right? So one of our very early exercises here. What is the confidence interval from the data set? So let's talk about what that means from the data set. So that means for number one, so in English or in Danish, what we're saying here is only with the knowledge of the data set. So there's some little alarm bells that should go off, like, only from the data in the data set. So the as in, remember, some of these confidence intervals require previous knowledge. So some of these confidence intervals require that you know what the population standard deviation is, right? That's in those slides, in those lecture slides from those lessons 3 weeks ago, showing the different methods. They tell you each one of those methods says, when am I going to use this? Well, do I know the population variance or do I not? Do I not? I just saw someone's comment that made me laugh. Or do I not know what this population's variance is, right? So this question says, answer this question only from this data. So by definition, this question is saying you do not know what the population variance is because we didn't give it to you. You only have this data, this sample data. So immediately, this is telling us that this is a unknown standard deviation, population standard deviation. So this is, what kind of confidence interval is this, folks? What kind of confidence interval is this going to be? What is the distribution? What is the probability distribution that is the theory behind this confidence interval? I'm going to keep making funny faces until somebody answers my question. Bilal, all right. I just have these funny images of you guys. Everybody's typing, right? I just have this funny image of like, God, I wonder what it, has he got like a big hot dog in his mouth or something? Or why isn't he speaking, right? Is it, oh, we're going to type the answer on here instead. But anyway, thank you, Bilal. He writes, it's a T distribution. That is correct. That is correct. It is a T distribution. And because this T distribution, remember, was designed by that guy from the beer brewery from Guinness. And he wanted to test the beer data. And so he needed a way to generate answers only with the data he had, which, and I bet there's some of you out there who know a little something about beer. And you know, of course, that beer, it's traditional beer, you know, single batch beer, you know, you make a batch and it's organic, right? It's got yeast, Gevair, not Gevair, Gare has Gare in it and yeast, you know, and it's a random thing. It takes a lot of skill and knowledge to make the beer. It's kind of random. And so you can't really trust that the data from last year's beer batches is going to be the same data as this year's beer batches because stuff shifts around. It's got a natural process going on. So the T statistic is great because now you can make these statistical discussions, these answers based only on the data that you have and not based on some other data that came from somewhere else. So anyway, let's look at the answer. Enough of my talking. So always a good thing to do here. Here's the whole data set here. And this is not the answer to the question, but the point I'm showing here is every time we get a set of data, and I'm going to tell you this, you really should do this. Everything we do in this course from now on, every time you get a set of data, there are just certain things you should just do. You should just make a plot of the data. Make a picture of the data. Don't go off and start making answers to your questions if you haven't made a picture of your data first, because you may make some totally stupid, dumbass answer that if you had a picture of the data in front of you, you would realize was completely wrong. So that picture of the data is important. Don't be cheap and go lazy and say, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to get the answer. Make a picture of your data and look at it, because there's some things you may see there that suddenly you're like, oh, I better be careful about this because this is going to act a certain way. So anyway, here's the answer. There's the answer to the question. So this is a T statistic. Right there is my T statistic. I'll zoom in a little bit. Bloop, bloop. And there's my T statistic. And there's the formula, right? And there are how many Bonus question. How many degrees of freedom? How many degrees of freedom? $551. How large is the sample size? 552. Thank you very much. Right? So degrees of freedom is sample size minus 1. So that's what we got here. 551 degrees of freedom. And we have, why is this? So I said in the question, 95% confidence interval. Femihel Fems here, folks. Why is that 0.025? Why is that 0.025? Why is that? Why is it 0.025? Half of 5%. So that's correct. That is correct. So why is it half of 5%? Why is it half of? Because it's a double-sided test. Thank you very much. Because it's a double-sided test. Yes, indeed. And again, this is, another example of, draw the picture, dummy. Draw the picture. This is the kind of basic stuff, draw the picture, because figuring out what this value is in this t statistic, it's the kind of thing you could just get wrong and stupid. And some of you did on your homework, by the way. But I didn't, kill you for it. But draw the picture so that you see what the hell you're doing. So this is a double-sided test. It's a double-sided confidence interval. Confidence interval, by definition, is double-sided. It's a confidence interval. So it's got a left side and a right side. So it's double-sided, right? So anyway, so that's the answer. And I made a little pretty picture down here. And, here's the upper and the lower and the middle, and here's the picture right there. And so we're done with that. And that I think most of you can do. I just from the small sample of questions of exercises submitted, then that's intentional. I always want that first question to be something you can, really do. So that one we're good. That one we're good. So next question again, from the data, out from the data here, from the data, is it possible that the average speed is in fact 60 miles per hour here in America? So this is a hypothesis test. This is a yes or no question. A hypothesis test is basically a yes or no question. Were you on the night of the December the 25th breaking into that bar? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. And so it's a hypothesis test. Again, here we don't have a known variance. We do not have that. So once again, it's a t-statistic thing here. And let's scoob over here to this guy. So here's our solution. Draw the picture. Draw the picture. I know that's a little, and again, that's an example of something that's harder to do with an it's more labor intensive to do this electronically. If you were giving me a paper assignment, you could just draw the picture and hand it in and we'd be done. But with electronic, it means you gotta draw, scan, copy, paste, and they're I don't want to do that. So I understand that. But it does make it better. And it does, those of you who did make the effort, some of you did, to draw a picture and scan it and put it in the assignment, it either makes sure you get the right answer, or if you didn't get the right answer, it sure goes a long way towards at least showing me that you got some of it right. And that gives you credit. That gives you extra credit there to, still get some credit. But so this is a t-statistic test, and we do not know. We do not know what the real variance is. So we are using the sample variance, sample standard deviation from our data. And this is the target. This is this average 60 miles an hour that we are questioning, that we are concerned about. And then so we have our test statistic here, and we have our critical value. And this critical value matches right here with this picture I drew. And then the p-value, which is, and this is a double-sided test, right? Because it is an equality question. The question is, let's look at the question again. Question is it truly, is it truly mean equals 60? And if you look back at our slides and our presentation material from the lectures, when we say equals, it's double-sided. It's got a left side and it's got a right side because we're testing for the middle. We're testing for the middle there. So it's a double-sided test. So here is our double-sided picture. Got a left side, got a right side. I'm testing on the right side because it just makes a lot more sense. Possibly you could generate this test statistic because if, for example, this mean were really small, then this test statistic might show up way over here in the left. So then you would just draw the picture the other way around, maybe. But it's the same thing. It means the same thing. But anyway, critical value test statistic, clearly it's a fail. Rejection, because the center part is our accept region here. And p-value, what is the probability to the right of this test statistic? 0.004. 0.004 right there. And the only thing that I haven't pressed you on is that, because I don't agree with it, actually. I don't actually agree with it. But it's there are a lot of people in the field, when it's a double-sided test, they quote this p-value at 2 times the value. So right now, this rejection region is 0.025. So the p-value for that rejection is 0.0044. But in a lot of software and a lot of discussions or studies, people want to quote that p-value as a relationship to the 5% rejection region. So to make that logical jump, they double this value and quote it at 2 times because they're making the comparison not to the 0.025, they are making the comparison to the 5% complete rejection region. So that's an example of something, right? I just explained that, and I bet there's a couple of you out there going, yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever, I don't know. And you know, it's one of those kind of crazy, abstract, complicated things. And it would possibly be really easy for me to just make a list and just say, memorize this damn list. When it's this and this, double it. When it's this and this, don't double it. Yeah, okay. Some people like that. I don't, actually. I like to know why. I like to know, why am I doing this? I'm very, very rebellious that way. I don't like to take orders. I like to know why I'm doing something. So that learning style doesn't work for me. I am not very good. I hated chemistry because chemistry for me is like that. Chemistry is like, just memorize a bunch of stuff. Don't ask questions, just do it because I told you so. The periodic table has no logic to it whatsoever, in my opinion. It is entirely memorization. I don't like it. Anyway, let's go here. Let's move on this baby. All right. Question 3. Again, from the data, right? Now we're testing for variance. So remember from our presentations, from our slides, from the material, this is a different work toy because variance is a quadrat. Variance is a square. So we're not using t-statistic. Now it's chi-square because we need a distribution that deals with squares. And so there is an example of how to do this in the presentations in our lectures. And so here we go. So there is our test statistic, right? This is a square. Variance is a square. We are testing a square and a quadrat. And so here's our test statistic. Draw the picture. Again, draw the picture. And test statistic, critical value, p-value. And I made this comment for me for my grading. These are two ways that you may have done it that are not correct. But if I see that in your paper, I'm like, okay, it's a common error. I don't, it's like not the end of the world. And it actually doesn't change the answer. So you could have these values. It does not change the answer. You still reject it, but they aren't actually 100% correct. So these, and what's going on here? So the first one I saw, for example, in someone's paper was the wrong value for alpha, or the wrong value for the percent for the Excel function. So the Excel function is measuring the percent from the left side here over to your critical value. And so if we have a 5% region to the right here, then this number right here is 0.95 right there, because this is a what did I write? This is a 10% significant. I did that on purpose. I did that on purpose. Yes, I did. I did that to catch you, to trip you up. I sure did. You bet I did. This is a 10% significance level, not 5%. So this number needs to be different. This number is not 0.025. This number is 0.05. It is double-sided, but it is a 10% significance level. So this is 0.05 up here. Draw the picture. Draw the picture. And so, but then you could have made a mistake. Couple of mistakes people made, right? Number one, somebody just punched in 10% here. No. Or somebody punched in 90% here. No. And so, and now this one right here would be correct. It would be correct if this was a single tail test. It would be correct if this was a single tail test. Why would it be a single tail test? Well, let's look at the question again. I ask for equality here. Is it equal to? There is an example in the slides and in the text where the question is not equal to, the question is less than or equal to. Less than or equal to. So less, and draw the picture. How many times am I going to say this? I'm going to say it so many times you're going to be sick of hearing it from me. You're going to be like, God damn it, I don't want to hear that anymore. But I'm going to keep doing it because it's important. Draw the picture less than or equal to. If you draw the picture less than or equal to, this left side is not there. It's not there because it is less than or equal to. So this goes away, and then this becomes 10%. And then if that were true, this number would be correct. If this was less than or equal to, and this was a single tail test, this critical value would be the correct critical value. So these are lots of ways you can kind of make silly mistakes. And, on an exam or something, they give you partial credit. But in the real world, the nuclear reactor blows up and something goes wrong. So you need to pay attention, right? So anyway, so last question, and this one is a hard one. This one is a hard one, and I purposely made it hard. Yes, it was. This was intentionally designed to be stressful. Yes, it was. And I told some people that. And but this is the last work toy. This is the last tool that we did in our set of lessons before we got to linear regression. And this is the last work toy. And this requires a lot of manual effort. It doesn't, there's no like, oh, I just push a couple of buttons and the answer comes out. Yeah, this one requires work. It requires a lot of work. So let's see what that work looks like. So it is structured exactly the same as the example in the slides with the rolling of the dice, with the ternina, with the rolling of the dice. However, it gets ugly because it's not a rolling of the dice test, right? It's about the normal distribution. And so now, you got to like think about this and draw a bunch of stuff out and do some things. There are some shortcuts to take, but otherwise, yeah, it's just brute manual labor. It's just brute force, right? So let's take a look here. I suggested in the instructions, I said, you know what? Use 10 buckets, use 10 groups, and go ahead and do the stretch between 47 and 67. That's what I said. And because I was just trying to keep it from getting to be too crazy, and also give you some fixed guidelines for what to do here. So we have our 10 buckets. We have our 10 buckets. And what we need is we need to know, where do the observations fit in those buckets? And then we need, this is the hard part. The hard part now is, how do I calculate this expected count in the buckets? How do I do that? That, I agree, is hard. That I agree. But if you're doing this, and I want to give you partial credit, I am fundamentally looking for, did you draw this table with the 10 buckets? And maybe you got this completely wrong. Maybe this part is just not right at all, but that's okay. I will still give you some credit for this question. If you just know that this is what you got to do. You got to make these 10 buckets, and you got to start setting this data apart. If you got that, I'm giving you credit, some partial credit here. But how do we do this? So this is just brute force labor. Not easy. So each one of these intervals, here's the interval. It's from 47 to 49. And then the next interval, 49 to 51. And then the next interval, 51 to 53, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And we just do this until we're done, 65, 67. And I need to do two things. I need to get how many of this data over here, how many of these points sit between 47 and 49, and put them up here. And same thing here, and same thing here. So that you can do a couple of different ways. You could do it by hand. If nothing else, you could do it by hand, and you can. So I sorted this data, and you could go over here and you could say, okay, 47, here's the first one in 47. And that's how many, okay, and you can just count them by hand. It's hard work, but it works. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. There's 6 between 47 and 49. Boop. Type that in. I did it because I just can't resist being a show off and being too fancy. So I did it using the histogram tool. So the histogram tool that we have used, I think, I'm pretty sure we did, from the data tab here. And it's, once again, it's not there. Damn it. I told you about how I keep having to reinstall it in my Excel installation. It's gone. And I just used it last night. Anyway, so use the histogram tool. And the clever part here is, normally when you use the histogram tool, it just automatically creates the divisions and allocates the data. But you can create your own list. And this is called the bean. So you create your own list of breakpoints. And you need to create a little bit below and a little bit above, because the Excel function does some funny things with the bottom and the top of this list. So just, you want to stay out of that. So I start a little bit early and I end a little bit late in the list, and make a list, and then use this as the bin in the histogram tool and say, go, just do it. And then it generates the list for me right there. So this is the frequency. And so there we go. And so this frequency is always the number from here to here is this number. From here to here is this number. From here to here is that number, et cetera, et cetera. So this is my count right there, done automatically for me from histogram. And there's the charted histogram right there. And so I put those numbers in up here. Now, this part down here, yeah, this is ugly, complicated. So now I need to know, what is the probability from this distribution that we have chosen, this normal distribution, of a number dropping in this range. So in between these range, and again, you could draw the picture. You draw the picture of the normal distribution and you say, okay, here's 47, here's 49, what's in between? And you're back to the same kind of tools you use for confidence intervals. So this is the interval between 47 and 49 is going to be the distribution at 49 minus the distribution at 47. And that is how much is in between. That is how much is in between those 2 points. And you repeat this all the way up the scale here. How much is it starting from or ending at, how much in there, and the difference, and do this over and over and over and again. So you do this all the way up here. So that's the probability of landing in each one of those buckets. So now the question is, this part up here, this needs a count, an actual count to compare to. So the count is the percentage of our total data set that lands in here as a count. So that count is 744. This data set has 744 entries. It's a sample size of 744. So this value is 1.65% of 744, and on and on and on. So this one is 15% of 744. And that's where that number comes. So now we have an expected value for all these guys right here. We have an expected value. And now we can make the test statistic. And here's our test statistic. Test statistic is the sum of observations minus expected squared divided by expected. And there is the statistic right there. I calculate it for each bucket because it's a summation. So each bucket, so here's the test statistic for bucket 1. Here's the test statistic for bucket 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the total test statistic is the sum of all 10 of these buckets. So there it is. And then here is the critical value. And our critical value, this is chi-square. Again, this is from the slides. It's directly from the example with the rolling dice in the slides. So this is chi-square. This is a 5% significance. What kind of test is this? I didn't draw a picture here. Or did I? Did I draw a picture? I did not. I'm so bad. I must have forgotten to, I ran out of energy and didn't do it. I should have drawn a picture. I didn't do that. I thought I did. I did draw a picture. Oh, I have the picture here, but I don't have it in my spreadsheet. I'll show it to you in a minute. I'll show you. I did draw the picture. I just don't have it here for some reason. I did draw a picture. What kind of test is this? 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 Okay. It is not an F statistic. It's a chi-square. It is not. What kind of picture is it going to be? It is a goodness of fit test. Thank you very much. That is correct. This is very definitely a goodness of fit test. That is exactly what we are doing. And that will also be the subject of my presentation after the next break. Thank you very much. So when I say, what kind of test is this, right? So what kind of test is this? I've actually been discussing this a couple of different times. What kind of test is this? That's double-sided. What kind of test is this? Can you tell just by looking at the it's a single-sided test. This is a single-sided test. It is. This is a single-sided test. And it says that also on the slides. It says that on the lecture slides that explain this method. This is a single-sided test. This is. So this is a single-sided test. And so actually I will open the picture. Let me open the picture. I don't know why I didn't copy the picture and put it on there. I will resolve that very soon here. Don't know why I didn't put the picture on there. I guess I was getting tired. Oh, wow. I was tired there. Yep. Okay, folks. Alrighty. Here we go. Come on. I'm going to copy it. Here we go. Copy and skip over here. Paste. There's my picture. All right. There's my picture. No, I don't. There's my picture. So it's a single-sided test. So here's the critical value. There's the test statistic. And clearly, it's a rejection because we are way over here in the rejection region. We are way over here in the rejection region. And what else was I going to say? I can't remember. I was going to say something. Anyway, it is not correct. It is absolutely not correct. And this is the p-value right here. And because this is 48 as a test statistic, and this is 16, so that's basically 3 times as much, 330. Yeah, 3 times as much. The p-value is like comma null 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 null. I mean, it's like crazy small number. So it's basically 0. The p-value is basically 0. So it's a crazy small p-value. So this is a rejection. This is a rejection all the way around. And in fact, I knew in advance that this would not be the correct distribution. I purposely chose it that way to have the answer come out this way. So that is our solution to the exercises. Any questions on that? Now's your chance for those who say I talk too fast and too much all the time. Now's your chance to ask a question on that. But do please, for those of you whose format is not really easily readable for me, please do resubmit it. I will upload the answers on D2 Learn after I'm finished grading. After I'm finished grading. Yeah, you're a smart ass, Dewey. All right. But I would like, I would like to grade these, I don't want to leave it forever because I'm sure everybody wants feedback, right? Everybody, although you kind of know, now you've seen the answer, you have a vision of what it is, but it's part of your grade. So I got to grade it, right? And we got to do this. But you can't change it now because I have your original submission. I'm holding that. And so if there's any funny monkey business where you change your answer between the 2 copies, no, that's not fair. No. But please do reformat it because it's just not, otherwise it's just not possible for me to grade them. All right, where are we? This has been, I hope you found this as entertaining as well as informative. Let's close this. Let's see where we are here. It'll be easier for me to grade if all the answers are right. I suppose it would be. Yeah. All right, we did that. Oh, I can do this quickly and then we'll take a break. We can do this quickly. So here's the plan, exam plan for the exam, examines plan. 60 minutes. 60 minutes. Of course it's online. Oh, what were you thinking? Yeah, of course it is. And but it's basically content up to last week, right? So confidence intervals, confidence intervals, hypothesis test, and simple linear regression that we are going to exercise again here after the break. And in fact, due to time, I may actually, boy, I hope this has been entertaining for you. I know I talk a lot, but I hope I'm an entertaining lecturer, that I bring joy as well as information. But anyway, I may have to switch around our order. I said I would give this presentation from Informs, but I do think you would much more appreciate that I do more exercises in linear regression. So I'm going to switch the order after the break. And I can still give the Informs presentation for those of you who would like to see it, but I will not force you to do that. But I think you might like it, some of you. I think it might be fun. So anyway, back to the exam here. So yeah, confidence intervals, hypothesis test, simple linear regression. Very much, as I think is fair, very much focused on the exercises you have already done. So I think this is always the most important thing to do in preparing for an exam, right? What did you do in the exercises, and did you do it? Did you understand it? So back over the exercises, right? This will be online, and it'll be Kurzwahl, short answer, right? It'll be lots of little fill in the blank, short answer kind of stuff. I actually do not know if it will be multiple choice, because I'm going to try. I need to learn how to run this DTU exam system, and I have never used it before. Last year, was it last year? Yeah, last year I did some exam. Oh, I did an exam in another class, and I used DTU Learn. But there's like all kinds. It was okay according to the regulations, because the exam did not have a censor, so I could get away with that. And actually, the DTU Learn system I thought worked really well, but the DTU Learn, your exam at the end of the semester has a censor, and I cannot do that on DTU Learn. So I have to use this DTU exam system, and I need to figure that out. So for the midterm, even though we do not have a censor for the midterm, I need to try it in DTU exam just to see that the technology works. So it will be, and I don't know how easy it is to configure the questions yet. That's one of my weekend activities here, is to figure out how DTU exam works and then type up an exam. So we'll see. But maybe it'll have some multiple choice, but it'll definitely not be something where you're submitting a spreadsheet, or and it technologically will not be possible for you to create a picture and send it in, which I think is also unfortunate, because it would be nice to have a paper exam where you can actually draw a picture, but it will not be possible. So anyway, where are we? All right, another break. And then when we come back, as I said, I'll switch the order. Let's come back and do some linear regression practice, because I think that's more important to you for the exam. And then after that, I can give my presentation that I was thinking of for those, or I don't know, maybe I'll push it to next week. Maybe that's what I'm going to do. Because after exam next week, you're going to be like, I'm tired. I don't feel like doing anything. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's do this linear regression practice today. And after exam next week, I will give this presentation I thought I was going to give now, because that's what I'll do. That's what I'm going to do. So take a break. Let's take a break. I'm going to set the clock here. And I will turn the mic off so you don't hear me talking to the dog or screaming at my son or whatever else. And so I'll set the clock here about 7 minutes, and see you back and we'll do some practice, some linear regression practice, and then call it a day, and then we'll be done for the day. So here I'm taking my break too. See you in a bit. Zoom. There we go. So we're looking at this data, and so everybody who's just picking up the recording now online, you just missed all the wonderful stories about my growing up in Minnesota. Anyway, access control, which just goes to show, even though you can watch this online, you still are missing something sometimes when you don't show up for the live show. You never know. The live show has always got extras that you don't get on the album. So anyway, access control. So I don't even know if they're still doing this. They may have stopped doing this, but for decades, for years, when I lived in Minnesota, on many of the motorways in the city, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, they were doing a flow control process. They had a stoplight. They had a traffic loose at the entrance ramp to the motorway. Not where you turn off the road to go onto the entrance ramp. I mean, after you've turned onto the entrance ramp and you're driving down the entrance ramp, there would be a traffic light on the entrance ramp. And you might have to stop. And the traffic light would say, stop. And you would stop on the entrance ramp and wait until you got a green light. And what they had is they had some kind of computer, some kind of monitoring system in a computer. And they would see how much traffic there was on the highway and then give you a green light so that you could come in onto the highway at a point where there was a little gap in the traffic. People hated this thing. They hated this, completely hated it. And they hated it when they got a traffic ticket for going through it. People used to ignore it all the time and just drive right through it. And then the police would set up a speed trap and give you a ticket. People hated it, absolutely hated it. So I think it's gone now because it was so hated. Anyway, functional class of road. So rural interstate and rural non-interstate. So rural is Ulkants, right? Ulkants, like out in the country, Lanavai, Ulkant. But then you have a motorvai in the city, and you have a motorvai in the Ulkant, in the outside. And so everything around the urban Minneapolis, St. Paul would be non-rural. But then as you get out here in farm country, out here in the Uli Lanel here, then that's rural. That is out in the country. And then urban interstate, so now this is the opposite. So you kind of think these kind of are exclusive, right? So we'll have to take a look at the data because I'm a little unclear. Isn't it obvious that if it's rural, it's not urban? But maybe we'll have to take a look at the data. Maybe there's a middle ground, suburban, outside the city, but not rural. That might be. Truck route. What kind of truck restrictions are there? What kind of last bill restrictions are there? Weight. Time of day. They don't want trucks driving through your neighborhood or through your area at night or something. And then land use. What is the kind of urban density around the road? So anyway, now that we got that all cleared up, but it's important to know your data, right? If I just gave you this data and didn't even tell you what these descriptors were, okay, yes, you could do the analysis. Sure, you could put the data in the spreadsheet and do some analysis. Sure, you can. But there might be, I have a story. I'm sorry, I like to tell my stories. I got a story. So I had a colleague, I had a professor at another university who was doing a research paper on railway scheduling. He was doing a paper on railway punctuality, actually. And he was doing linear regression for this paper. And he, you know, he was working and working and working and working, but then he came to me one day because I'm the railway guy, and he says, hey, Steve, you know, I've been working on this thing. I've been working on this for months, you know, and these numbers line up and these numbers line up, but I can't get these numbers to line up. They don't work. He says, why do you think this is, Steve? Why is this not fitting? This is not fitting. And I said to him, look at your data. Look at your data. Did you look at the times on your data? And I said, your data separation, your data groupings, they match the work shifts. They match the shifts, I don't know what it is per Danish in Danish, but the schedule, they match the working schedule. It's a 24-hour operation, right? 24 hours a day, trains are running. 24 hours a day, there's people in drift control. So there are people in drift control on a shift. And I suppose, I don't know, 2 hours, what are the shifts? I mean, is it an 8-hour shift 3 times a day? Yeah. Tui's gone to sleep. Anyway, but so there's shifts. And I said, look at your shifts. I said to this guy, I said, look at your shifts. The reason the data is changing is because these train dispatches are manual. There is a human in the drift control doing this dispatch, driving these train dispatches. And when the person changes, when the person goes home and another person replaces him, the person that replaces him has a different strategy for planning the trains. So your data changes when the shift changes. I mean, not a little bit, I mean a lot, like literally from 4:55 p.m. clocking 16:55 to clocking 17:10, it changes because the guy that took over the shift, the guy who came in and sat down at the table after the other guy went home, he changed the board around. He said, I don't want to run the trains this way. I want to run them a different way. So anyway, so let's go here. Here's what you need to do. So the message here, come on, here we go. The message here is that this first step that we need to do, you may be like, this is just too easy. This is a waste of my time. I don't know. It's not a waste of your time. This is the first step to getting this thing going correctly. So grab that data table and create for each pair between variable 1 and the other 7 variables, create a scatter plot. Create a scatter plot of the data. And let's take a look at it and discuss it. Before we even start doing any solutions here, let's create a scatter plot of these data. So you should have 7 scatter plots of this data. So let's do that. And then let's come back. It shouldn't take very long. It should be relatively quick, but let's do this. Excuse me. And there are 15, so let's go with 4. And let's do this. Let's go. Like, like, shouldn't take forever, like 5 minutes. Shouldn't take too terribly long. Let's do this. Get this thing done. Yeah.
Der er ikke noget at sige.
All righty. Where'd my camera go? Everything's all over the place here. There we go. There we go. All righty. All right. So let's take a look at this. So you should have something like this. Which of these are a good candidate for us to try first? Which of these are a good candidate for us to try first here? I'm going to scoot this around. There we go. So a couple of things to look at here. You should have some pictures that look like this. Have a couple of pictures that look like this. Down a little bit low down here. So a couple of things to think about. So think back here, and this is more a deeper concern for the material we do after the exam next week. But look at some of these pictures and think about, do these variables satisfy the conditions of linear regression? So what are those conditions? What are the conditions? And take a moment, maybe pull up the old slides or take a look at some of the slides on introducing linear regression. What are the things that we hope to see in linear regression? What are some of the conditions that we have to have in order for this to actually be mathematically valid?
Doesn't it have to look close to like a normal distribution?
Yeah.
Somewhat like a normal distribution.
Yeah. So, but what now? So that's a trick question, right? And I was, that would be a really mean question for me to put, because that would be one of those thinking questions, and a bunch of people would be like, "That's not fair." But that, in a more discussion-oriented thing. So looks like a normal distribution. What looks like a normal distribution? What specifically looks like a normal distribution? It looks like a normal distribution, but I mean, what part looks like a normal distribution?
Like in these graphs specifically, or in general?
Well, yeah, if we think about the process of making this analysis, what mathematical part of this linear regression do we believe is normally distributed?
Well, I would just like use it as I'm not sure what it's called in English, as skabelon, somewhat looking at a standard normal distribution and somewhat mirror it, or have it look like in this example, it's very spread out. There's not a lot of the middle column in a normal distribution isn't really visible in these examples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't have it ready, but it's in the slides and you can check the textbook later. So one of the rules is that the error is normally distributed. The error is normally distributed. So we're looking for a pattern, but the error on that pattern should be normally distributed. So if we look at some of these pictures here, let me give you an example. This last one, locale, which is the question. This one is whether or not this is urban or not, I believe. This is, this is locale. Yes. Is it urban or rural? That's what it is. All right. Now, right from the picture here, we got a little bit of a problem, which can be solved later. We will see some methods how to solve this later, but we have a little bit of a problem right here. The error is not uniform. It's a cone. See this cone? We have a concentration of values down here at level 1. And then at level 2, the values get higher, which is fine, but they don't uniformly shift higher. The variance gets bigger. So, and then over here at level 3, it gets even worse. It gets even more. So this picture right here for this one variable, this already violates one of our assumptions for the linear regression, because it does not have a uniform error distribution over the range of the values. The error, the variance is in fact completely dependent on which of the values the data is coming from. So already right here, we have a violation of this theoretical assumption for linear regression. We can fix it. We can do a lot to fix this. So it's not, doesn't stop us. This isn't going to stop us. But it, right away in this real data, we see a concern that could affect the accuracy. It could affect the validity of our results. But we can we'll see ways to solve that later. But here's another concern with this picture. There's another underlying theoretical expectation for linear regression. That expectation is that the values are real valued and continuous. These are not real valued and continuous at all. These are integer, and there's only three levels, and they're integer. So we got a challenge here too, and there's a way to deal with this later, we will see as well. But for now, this already kind of violates some of our assumptions in the linear regression, that we don't have a real continuous range of measures here. Same thing here for the designation of truck route. These values here are not really continuous, and the way they're defined, if you look back up here at truck route, these are not like a measure. These are like a binary yes or no. So in fact, this data, this truck route data, we will figure out how to do that differently later on. But for now, this data is not really very compliant with what we expect in terms of linear regression. Then let's see, function class, what kind of road it is. Let's take a look at that. Again, this is very much kind of binary data. This is true, false data. It is or it isn't. So it's not really very useful in terms of this idea of setting a coefficient on a multiplier and doing that. So that data is a little tricky in terms of doing something. Access control, again, this is binary. It's yes or no. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. And so it's a level setting variable. And so we have to deal with that a little differently. Maybe this one today we can do, because it's pretty simple. It's just yes or no, yes or no. So we can deal with that one. Width of lanes. Okay, now this one is a real number. This one is, and the numbers are distributed, right? So this road is 3 meters, and this road is 3.5 meters, and this road is 3,75 meters, and this road is 4 meters. And so it's a range, it's a numerical measure. And so we have, and you see there's lots of data points distributed over the measures, and we have a nice distribution here. And we can also see that there is a little bit of change in the variance over the measures. It's not totally scary. So this data so far of the pictures we've looked at is the closest to fitting some of our desires in terms of the theoretical in linear regression. So this is a good one. We'll do that one for sure. And then this one, number of lanes. So this one is a little closer to a proper numerical function. But by definition, it's integer. And it's only, and so 2, 4, 6. So this is both directions, clearly. This is both directions. So 2 lanes is a single road with traffic in 2 directions, and 4 lanes is a larger road with 2 lanes in both directions. And then 6 lanes is a, you know, motorway with 3 lanes in both directions. Probably, not necessarily, but probably. And then 8 lanes is, you know, the interstate going through Minneapolis at the city center. And that raises questions of whether it's an outlier, because you only have one data point. And even if the data is correct, with only that one data point, you run the risk that this thing is going to swing your results significantly. And it's kind of risky when you've only got that one data point. That one is something later on, there's a function called the hat index, and we might use that to try to determine whether we should toss that data point as an outlier. And then finally, county population. And this is a little frustrating because if we look at the description, oh, okay, I see. I bet I know why this has happened this way. So it says population of the county, and yet we look at the graph. We look at the graph, and yet it's only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a bunch of guys over here. But the reason that's happening is because you've got, this is probably Hennepin County right here on the far right. This is Hennepin County right here. And so Hennepin County is like Store-Kubenhauen. So you've got Hennepin County, which has got lots and lots of roads in it, but only one population value. So that gives you this range of lots of different traffic measures. And then over here, this is probably, that is probably St. Paul. That is probably Randolph County, St. Paul. And that's the next smaller size city in Minnesota. And it also has lots of roads. And then suddenly you get down over here and you get all the other counties, which are smaller and rural and have a whole mix of different roads, but they're smaller counties. So the traffic is, of course, less. So, so even though this number on the scale is measured as a real value, I mean, it's, hundreds of thousands of people, we have these big gaps in the data because the sample it comes from, some counties are just totally unique from others. So it becomes a little more difficult. Again, it can be done. We will do it. But the statistical validity of this regression to this data creates some problems, which we will see. So it looks like for a basic starting point example, the two that will be most interesting to look at right from the beginning are population and lane width. I think those two, population and lane width, I think if we do a regression on those two separately, first a regression on county population, then a regression on lane width, we do those two, that is a good starting point for conversation here. And then we might have time for one more, and then we'll call it a day. So let's do that. So let's do breakout room again. And so create a linear regression. You're going to do this exactly the same way we did last week with your first lesson on linear regression. Use the Excel tools, not by hand. You don't need to calculate all. No, we won't do that again. You do not need to manually calculate all these values. Use the data tool in Microsoft Excel and do the linear regression with the Microsoft data tool and just create the output. So let's do that for county population. And let's do that for the lane width. And let's look at those two results when we come back. And I'm going to guess it takes you, it won't take you too long, really, if you've already got the thing set up. So 5-6 minutes. And when you're done, just come on back. And as I see the names start to come back on the list, I'll kind of get a sense of, okay, we can come back again. So let's do this. County population and lane widths, do a simple linear regression on each one. And then let's take a look at it. Let's come back and take a look at it. So here you go.
Steven, jeg har ikke nogen i min gruppe. Der var heller ikke nogen før. Så kan jeg komme i en anden gruppe end
3? Yeah, selvfølgelig. Yeah, so how about, yes, ja, jeg bare flytter dig. Do, do, do. Do, do, do. And Joel, you too, I'm going to move you. If you're even listening, if you can even hear me, I'm going to move you, Joel. There you go. So what we'll find with multiple regression is that what happens is you put multiple variables into this formula, and each of the individual variables contributes a little bit more to the regression. So what will happen is this ANOVA table, instead of it having 1, 2, 3 rows, regression, residual, ELT, it'll have, regression variable 1, regression variable 2, regression variable 3, whatever. And it'll have a sum of squares of the regression that's bigger because it's the cumulative. It's the sum of all those individuals. And then this F significance will get better. And then this R squared, this 0.38 will get better. Now going back to, so to answer this, if this was just a basic question like an exam or something, the questions would be something like, okay, do this regression. What is the R squared? Well, there it is right there, 0.38. What is the coefficient for your variable? There it is right there, 0.0fem69. Is the regression significant? Well, no, it isn't. The F significance is pretty low. Is the p-value for the variable significant? Yes, it is. And the confidence interval also shows that the value is not 0. It does not lie at 0. But the total regression is not very convincing because the sum squares for the regression is so small relative to the sum squares for the error, for the residual. But then if you take a look at your residual plot, we just kind of slide over a little bit on the screen. So yeah, there, thank you. So this residual plot tells me a couple of things. The first thing it tells me is I do have a cone. I have a cone here. So the values are tight on the left side. And then as we go further to the right, there's a cone that develops and the values start to deviate more and more. So later after the exam, we will learn about how we might manipulate this data a little bit, might be able to tighten this cone a little bit. And that will dramatically affect the ANOVA table if we can tighten this cone and reduce this spread on the far right side. But there is right now this problem that the variance of the residuals is changing. At the left side, it's tight. At the left side, it's beautiful. It's all tight and it's got a distribution. But on the right side, it starts to spread and it starts to spread. And it's like, and then it's messing up. That is why this ANOVA significance is so bad, is because these numbers on the right, these plots on the right are totally ruining the ANOVA for this thing. So that's great. So let's take a look at width lanes.
You got it right here.
Yeah, and let's zoom in again. All right, so immediately, all righty. It's still kind of weak, but you can see the F significance is, the ratio is much better. So it's still not a great ratio because it's sum of squares 1.6 to the 10 to the 9 next to 1.1 to the 10 to the 11. So the ratio is still not really nice, but the F significance has improved quite a lot. It's now positive, 0.18 there on the F significance. And then we look at the p-value for the X variable. Now here we got it. Okay, so here we got a problem where you can see the confidence interval crosses 0. So the p-value is a rejection of the statistical significance for this X variable, because you see the confidence interval crosses 0 there. You see that we have a negative 152 on the lower barrier, and we have a positive 791 on the upper barrier. And so that we are 95% confident that maybe 0 is the value of this coefficient. And then if you look at the residual plot, oh, and look at the R squared. Look at the R squared is a joke. The R squared is like disaster. 0.014. That's basically saying completely worthless. That's a horrible R squared. That's like we just threw some dice and you might as well have just picked random numbers for this data.
So it wouldn't even be worth trying to fix this if the R squared is looking like this.
When the R squared is like that, it's like, man, this is, it's really hard to imagine this is salvageable.
Okay.
Really hard. I really doubt it. And look at and here's another one. Look at the residual plot. So the residual plot, I don't see a pattern. You know, I mean, anytime you stare at something long enough, you think you see something. But I look at that and I see a random distribution of dots.
But what is the pattern for the first one? Like, I don't see it here, for example.
I see there's definitely a cone.
Like an ice cream cone, like
yeah,
going,
it's a cone like this. It's like, it's a cone like that. It's very clear. You can draw it. You can draw it on the screen. You can take your little drawing pen and you can draw the cone over it. You can see it. You can do your annotate. Yes, exactly. That's correct. See the cone? That's very clearly. That's very clear. That's very clearly a cone. Absolutely. But if you go to the other one, if you go to the width lanes, yeah, now you have to switch the mouse and all this. Yeah, you go to the width lanes, you got to delete that. You got to hit delete drawing in the annotation. There's a little trash can. Yeah, little trash can, and you go clear, or I don't know what it is. It's probably in Danish.
Yeah, I found it.
So now you look at this and you try to draw something, and you're like, I don't know. It's a little higher in the middle, but is that, you know, it's not quite obvious that there's not really a pattern. It's just a cloud of dots. So that tells me you're not going to rescue this. You can't save this, because if there was a pattern in the residuals, you could create some kind of adjustment to the data that would then come back and make this ANOVA table better.
Yeah. Is it a big problem? You have all these negative values down here. Does that complicate things as well?
No, that's good.
That's good.
Because
okay.
we want the residuals to be a normal distribution with an average of 0.
Okay.
So there needs to be something negative to balance out the positive.
Of course,
It should average to 0.
Yeah.
So that's correct. But you look at that R squared and you're like, that's not going to happen. And what we will learn later is what the software does when we have multiple regression. One of the things the software does is it switches in and switches out variables.
You talked about this being, maybe it's because of it's a slice of the pizza, not the entire pizza we're looking at once. Could that maybe influence the data?
Yeah,
enough so that this wouldn't really matter in the big picture,
right?
Because there's something else weighing it up.
Right. We could find that we go through this and create a regression that uses 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, and then you don't need any more, and it gets it up to R squared 92, 0.92.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's no point in going any further, and then this just becomes noise. This just becomes static.
So you talked about earlier in one of the other classes about how there's people putting in data just for the fun of it,
Right.
you could call it. And this is an example of that. Like
Exactly.
inputting this would
exactly it.
be just noise in the.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly correct. And
Okay.
and look at that R squared. This is an example where you could throw this into the model and it might increase your R squared by null comma null et, right? It
Yeah.
might increase your R squared by that much, even though it is in fact garbage.
Okay.
It gives you a little push up on the R squared, even though it is in fact just garbage. It is just garbage. And so the risk becomes that somebody is doing a study or research and they're like, oh, I want the highest R squared possible. And they just keep throwing stuff in there because they want to get 0.99 R squared. And all they're doing is, I mean, you can do that if you just keep throwing more data in. Yeah, you will find a way to get the numbers to go up, but then a lot of it's just garbage. A lot of it's just junk. So let's so great. Okay. And so this one, so this one is and that's interesting. Now let's go back to the original. I'm going to bring it up here. Let's take a looky here. So what we have found out so far is we found out this guy we weren't very impressed with. We weren't very impressed with width lanes, but we are impressed with county population. Now let's take a look back at the original plots. County population, and you can see here, you can see in the original plot of the data, this same kind of shape that we're seeing in the residuals. So there's a correspondence between the residual plot and this original plot of the original data. And then we go down to the width of the lanes and you see this too in the width of the lanes. This shape looks a lot like the residual shape. And that kind of makes sense because we've only got one variable in this. When we start blending these and you have 2, 3 variables, then this residual plot is not going to look the same as the original data plot because there's multiple things, there's multiple factors coming in there doing stuff. But already we kind of predict this a little bit with the county population. So, I mean, let me show you what I'm thinking when I do this. I mean, I can kind of just manually guess here. I'm kind of like, hey, look, I see a linear line here going through this data, right? And I can just see it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. And that agrees with what we did just on the regression over there. And if I come down to the width of the lanes and I try to do the same thing, and I'm like, well, where do I draw my line? I'm like, it's like, I don't know. It's just a wild guess, maybe like this. And it's so small. The effect is so small. Even just looking at the data right here, you're like, I don't see anything. So I think that kind of what we got as a result matches with what we thought we would do. All right, so let's do one more and then call it a day. Oh, time is going here. Let's just one more. Number of lanes. I'm going to bet. I'm putting my money on this. This is my bet here. So let's do, and we won't do break. I'll just do this in front of you. I'm going to bet that we get something that looks like this. I think that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to just do that right in front of us right now. Let's do that. Number of lanes. Here we go. And number of lanes is column C. Okay, that'll make it go quick. So data analysis, because I already did this. Data analysis, column C. So I'm going to put column C. New worksheet apply, and I'm going to call that number of lanes. And looking good. Number of lanes. All right, let's take a look at this. All right, so there is a cone. There's a definite cone here, folks. That is very clearly, whoops, come on. That is as blatant, that is as obvious a cone as you could possibly get. That is like, that's a cone. And that is definitely something that we would treat with some kind of a data manipulation to get rid of that. And let's take a look at the result here. Hey, nice. This is pretty good. This is like one of the best ones so far. 0.58, 0.58, 58, null, 0.58 R square. That's pretty good. That's, you know, now we're getting somewhere. That's pretty good. And this is really good down here. This explains why it's so good. Finally, see the other two, the ratio was upside down, but this one finally we have a positive ratio, a ratio that's right side up. This value is larger than this value. So this means that the regression sum squares are stronger than the error sum squares. See that? So this is good. And so that means that our significance, this is, I think I may have misspoken earlier. So we want a small F significance. So we want a small, this doesn't show us what the critical value is. We have our F statistic here, but I don't have the critical value on the screen. So I have to draw the picture. But anyway, this is a good thing. This is a small F significance, smaller than our critical value. And of course that, because we only have one variable, it's the same as this one down here. And we look at our confidence, look at that. Definitely not crossing zero. Definitely not crossing zero. And the effect, again, we haven't, you know, the effect is, the number is very large because the X value is very small. So the X value is 2, 4, 6, as opposed to the county population where the value was in the hundreds of thousands. Now the value is 2, 4, 6. So now suddenly the coefficient is very large. But this one, of the three we have done, county population, width of the lane, and number of lanes, this one is the strongest linear regression that we have done so far. This is the strongest. Very good R square, and significant on the ANOVA, and definitely not zero down here, and significant here. So this is a winner. And the residual plot here, we have a definite cone. So that says, even though this is a good result, our work is not done. Our work is not done. And we should think about a way to adjust this for this cone. And then finally, I have not discussed this. This is not on the test. This is not on the test. But this is called the normal probability plot. And this is a tool to measure, are these residuals normally distributed? And they're clearly not very well right now. We are looking for a straight line. We are looking for a straight diagonal line. We're looking for something like this. We're looking for that. And instead, we've got this thing curving up like this. And so there is a zone in here where the data is not fitting a normal distribution. Now that could be because we are missing all of the information from the other 6 variables. That's gone. We don't have it. When we go later and we do the multiple regression, this normal probability plot may tighten up. And this residual plot may also tighten up. So yeah. So I think, so in terms of an exam, for those of you who've been patient enough to stick around with me this late, and then we'll call it a day, we'll be done. What would I do on an exam? I might say, I might just give you this result. I might just give you this table and ask you questions about this table. I might ask you, is this a significant regression? Is this X variable significant? in the regression? Is it statistically significant? I might ask you, is the regression as a whole statistically significant? What else could I ask you? I might not ask too much about the residual plot, because the whole class, you've been here with me for this conversation, but not the whole class. So it's kind of not appropriate to start bringing that up. Yeah, some of those questions I might ask. And then I guess I might also have a short data set and say, hey, throw this into Excel, generate the result, tell me what the answer is. And in terms of like, tell me what the R squared is when you use Microsoft Excel to fit a linear regression to this data. Tell me what the F statistic, the test statistic from the ANOVA table is for this data set if you do a linear regression on it. Something like that. That would probably be fair. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right, guys, I think that's it. I think that's enough. I think we've filled the time. And I will post this spreadsheet as well as the video and stuff like that. And that is what we've got. Thank you very much. So yeah, I still seem to be a bit of a talker. I promised you guys when we started that I wouldn't talk so much and we would keep the classes in control. But I seem to have been filling up the time. And I know for some people it's like, too much. I don't have enough patience for all that. But so I'll try to be good about controlling that. But anyway, have a good day. Have a good night. See you later. And do some of your practice for the exam next week. Look over the exercises, practice a little bit. There are some more in the textbook. You know, there are some examples you can just try to duplicate on your own. This data set is in the textbook. You can, practice with, and some of the answers that I've done here are also in the textbook for this data set. If you just read through some of the chapters. So anyway, see ya. I'm going. Have a good night. Bye-bye.